So as this channel, Micro Four Nerds, is about my transition from full frame to Micro Four Thirds system cameras, I thought I would go over why I decided to abandon the Sony ship. As I've mentioned before, I loved Sony and still do as a brand. My first proper camera was a Sony. I've had loads of SLRs, SLTs, mirrorless from them, Sony camcorders, the lot. There were just a couple of things that became bigger and bigger problems as I moved into more professional arenas with my photography. And I'm going to go through them now. First of all, the killer for me was the battery life. I appreciate that something has to give when the body is so small and the sensor is so big, but it was atrocious. I shoot weddings with my photography partner Martin Forrest, who's awesome.
Back to that. Family shoot, wedding photography also. Sorry. So, why choose us?
No, Martin, please stop. He's a Nikon man, but no one's perfect. And it's almost comical how well his batteries perform compared to mine when I was shooting Sony. I would go through at least 4 before like the middle of the day. I was scrambling trying to find plugs, asking the bartenders to put things on charge for me. Meanwhile, the Nikon, which granted isn't EVF and weighs a ton, maybe was 1 bar below. You know, it was unbelievable how much these things drain the battery. The other side of that is, to compensate from that, you would want to turn the camera off when you're not using it in the little moments in between. This is going to be a regular segment. Cat! Turning the Sony A7 on and off, and other Sony cameras that I've had for that matter, was so sluggish. It was so sluggish that you wouldn't want to turn the camera off, and then the battery life would go down more, and then you would just be in a complete mess. So I found long professional shoots with the Sony gear quite stressful. Number 2, no flippy screen on the Sony A7. And I know that's such a small thing, but there's nothing worse than shooting a video like I'm doing now, and I can see me in the screen so I know I'm in focus. There was nothing worse with the Sony one, shooting a whole thing and realising it was focusing over here somewhere. Not cool. I found the lenses on offer in the E-mount, the full frame E-mount series, were very, very expensive for what they were. I had the Zeiss f4 Constant, which was supposed to be their flagship stock lens, and it was awful. The barrel distortion, the chromatic aberrations. It was f4. Who has a stock lens of that price, which was £1,300, that's f4? I mean, yes, it was weather sealed, yes, it was metal, yes, it had internal focusing, so it was great for video, but compared to other brands, compared to what Panasonic and Olympus and Nikon have on offer, I just thought it was a hell of a lot of money for what you actually got in terms of image quality. And then the other thing, the workaround for that, is your adapters. So you can use your A-mount lenses on your F-mount Sony Alpha camera, because that's not a confusing system, Sony. So you could get a really good A-mount lens, use your adapter, and it would work, except because you're sticking a translucent mirror in between the sensor and the glass, you would lose a stop of light. So really, you can't win. Either your fast lenses become a stop slower through the adapter, or your native lenses are slower by design. Not a fan. I also found on my Sony A7 that the continual autofocus was awful. It would often pulse and sometimes just go off on one behind me. Hello, cat. So I originally went from the Alpha 77, the Alpha 99, down to the A7 in order to downsize but still keep full frame. And while the bodies were very small, I found even the more expensive lenses were very, very large. So it didn't actually cut down on the weight as much as I was hoping to. And then the battery life sacrificed most of the pros of having a smaller kit anyway, which is why I'm finding Micro Four Thirds so good, because the battery life is great and the lenses are actually small as well as the body, so it's good. It doesn't look stupid. I mean, have you ever seen anything as stupid as a Sony A7 attached to a full-sized, full-frame 70-200? Because it's pretty daft. Pretty daft. After using the Panasonic menus, I've realised what menus in a camera system should be. And while the Sony menu systems were by no means bad, like the Olympus 10F, The menus on that are just atrocious, but that's something for another video. I found the menu systems in the Sonys to be quite basic. Okay, so I've bashed my Sony A7 repetitively for the past few minutes. Let me just tell you some good things, because I did stick with that system and that brand for a very long time, and there were some really good points. Through the Sony range and me buying up through the range, I learned all the ropes of photography and videography, and it's made me the shooter I am today, which is hopefully not terrible. The image quality and the dynamic range in the RAW files I found superb. It saved my backside on many occasions. When I've exposed an image wrong, you can just pull it straight back. That's one of my concerns with the Micro Four Thirds, because I know I've got less dynamic range. But the plus side of that is it will force me to be a better photographer in camera, which is only going to be good in the long run. So, pros and cons. And despite me moaning about the form factor of the A7, it was incredibly light for a full frame camera. I tried to use Martin's Nikon with the 70-200, and the idea of using that for a full wedding ceremony, just no. Tiny hands. Tiny hands! I can't deal with that. So the A7 was good. It wasn't as portable as I wanted it to be. I wouldn't take it out all the time like I do with my Micro Four Thirds, but it was better than some full frame options. EVF. Sony, I think, in my experience, were the brand to really pioneer the EVF, the electronic viewfinder. And, you know, purists will kick my butt for saying this, but I loved the EVF. When I was learning, it showed that I could compose the shot right without trying. If it was a one-off event, I knew I would get it right first time, because I could see through the electronic viewfinder exactly how the shot would turn out. And you can see all of the data inside the EVF. So for me, personally, there's no going back. And thankfully, all of the Micro Four Thirds systems do have EVF. So yes. Thus concludes my bashing of my Sony A7. No, I really did like it. It was great. A couple of years ago you would have cut me and I would have bled Sony, and it's still a fantastic gear, fantastic, but don't sacrifice all of the things that I've spoken about, like the screens, the battery life, the form factor, the expensive lenses, just to tether yourself to a full frame sensor, because it's not the be all and end all. And that's what I'm hoping to discover this year with my venture into Micro Four Thirds. So what have your experiences been? If you have Sony gear, or if you're a Micro Four Thirds fan, how do you think they compare? Do you think I've been overly harsh, or would you agree? Let me know. And stick around for more Micro Four nerds stuff. I'll think of a better slogan eventually.